Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to World's Smallest Jet Shop. We're going to wrap up pretty soon this poor exhaust nozzle assembly. I know you all are getting tired of seeing it and looking at it, so we'll try to speed this along a little bit for you. As you saw in part 4, we got the inside bearing area and housing and enclosure all closed up, safety wise. Okay, so now this time we're gonna pay some attention here to some gaskets, and we're going to show I want to spend just a couple of minutes on gaskets and how I obtained them, getting them cut, getting them made. Basically that goes pretty quick. Okay, and then we're going to turn attention to the lube and air, the oil mist, lube, and the air plumbing that's external, outside I've been talking about all this time, so we can get those pieces installed. And then there's a couple other minor things. Then I think the last thing will be the turbine shroud, which it installs and it fastens. It mounts into this housing also. So as you can see, there's quite a few things going into this very important component. Okay, well, without any more delay, let's go. Let's take a look at some gaskets. Okay, let's talk gaskets here. Alrighty, we have a collection of gaskets that I had cut for this engine. There's basically just two different types of material here. The green color rings are higher temperature, up to about 575 degrees Fahrenheit sustained temperature, and the brown ones are for lower, maybe 300 degrees or less, and they're oil and gasoline and such proof. This material, here's a sample we can show you here. It's Thermoseal Clinger Cell. I don't know, that you can look that up. This is about $250 for a 5 foot by 5 foot sheet, or 25 square feet. It's about $250. So, you know, it's kind of expensive, but it's pliable. It's very similar to the gaskets that were on this engine, but they were very brittle and crumbly from age. So we wanted to get something that would be somewhat compatible. So this is going to be for the oil filler, and also the same flange. It also fits the flange that feeds the oil mist to the bearings. This is you saw inside behind the front cover, between the front cover and the bearing retainer. Then we had this is for the front accessory case attaching to the front of the intake housing, and this is the outer gasket of the exhaust nozzle assembly bearing front cover. You just saw that in part 4. And this great big ring is for, we will show you here on the where the exhaust eductor attaches to the exhaust nozzle assembly. Basically, there's a company locally here in Indianapolis that I'm sure there's more than one, but they sell this seals and different types of different types of gasket material, and they do even provide the service of cutting them. They do not have water jetting and that kind of stuff where you could, if you had a scanner, you could scan these flanges. Sometimes it's easier said than done, but in this case they worked with me and we were able to come up with something here. So I got some fashion of a gasket. Okay, well, that covers gaskets. Long story short, you got to make your own. It'd be very difficult to find new old stock, something like this. So you got to use your imagination. Spend a little cash, spend a little time. Part of the fun. All right, I've already lubed, put a little turbine engine oil on these fittings. So I have a little lube going on. Put my custom gasket here on here, and let's see if we can get, I'll see if I can get this to install. Basically it just, oops. This has to go this way. Okay, got a spacer here, and we got a feed. All right. I got a feeling that nut's not going to turn, is it? It's going to thread it through here. Get these snugged up good, and we will be one more thing done. Snug those up good. I think we can tighten our pinching bolt here. Pinch screw. And there we go. Drawing it up. This draws these two blocks together with those gaskets, and what we have now is a sandwich between the outside block and a gasket, and then we have this thin piece of strut material, and then we have another gasket, and we have the inside block. I guess I better. All right, so we'll see what the torque specs are on that bolt, and by golly, I think we have plumbing installed. I looked up the specs for this bolt, and it's 80 inch-pounds. Got the torque wrench set, so let's see what we got here. Make sure it's tight, right? All right, here we go. There it is, torqued. All right. Lubrication and air supply lines installed. Lucky for all you viewers out there, this part 5 video will be a little bit shorter than the rest, and I got a little fill-in material here. I took this to my buddy's workshop, and we did a little tinsmithing and metalworking. In part 6, I'll be showing how this exhaust nozzle extension is attached to the back of the exhaust nozzle assembly, which actually I guess completes the exhaust nozzle. It takes this piece here in concordance with this assembly to make a full exhaust nozzle for this engine. Well, this little edge here had quite a few dings, dents, bends over the years of mistreatment. So we took some curved hammers and some little curved dolly metal blocks, and his touch showing me some technique, I went around and got all this nice and not perfect, but it's sure a lot better than it was. This piece, this part here, this tapered flange fits nicely and snugly into this tapered flange. And these little feet draw up to these little tabs that are welded here. And then there's a screw and a self-locking nut. Okay, so that's a little bit of an aside. Also to point out, in case somebody is wondering or asks, when I installed this screw, the screw and nut to hold these two blocks together, you notice I didn't safety wire it. I didn't really mention it, but this is a self-locking nut. So a self-locking nut will, by its own nature, not allow itself to become loose. Same way with AN fittings, they are basically self-locking. Sometimes you will find these with holes drilled in the corners of the fittings and for a small hole for safety wire. The manual does not require these to be safety wired, nor were they safety wired, nor are there any holes drilled in them, so I could safety wire them. These inherently usually hold their tightness. That's the whole design behind them, so they're quick to unhook and reconnect, but yet make a leak-proof connection and stay tight. Okay, so that's a little cap off of this. I know I like this pointing stick. It's just awesome. So I can keep my fat fingers out of the photo. We also touched this flange up here. Got this flattened out a little bit. It was pretty wavy and bent. Remember, this is an economical engine. This was not designed to be a long-lasting engine. So we have to keep referring back, remembering, if this were a Rolls-Royce or a Pratt & Whitney or some engine that was going to be around for a while, this would be a much thicker flange. This would, of course, obviously the whole engine would be different, but let's just, as an example, little things like this. This is just a rolled flange of stainless steel out of this piece of metal here. If it were to have to be much stronger, it would be, or long-lasting, this would be made out of probably a stainless steel ring instead of just a piece of sheet metal. But this also, this simple design also makes it a really good beginning engine. Simple as it is, great. Okay, let's do a wrap-up video and we will be done with part 5. Okay, we're going to wrap up part 5. It's a little shorter than normal, but you know, that's a little, the way the material worked out, I was able to piece it together and get part 5 and part 6 to complete this assembly, so we can move on to the next assembly. Alrighty, so I appreciate everybody's patience and watching. I say it every time, but as I said, and thank God for that fast forward button. Appreciate it. So anybody got any questions, feel free to comment or ask, and I'll try to help you out. Hopefully maybe somebody out there will take an interest in restoring a J44. There are a few floating around out there. They show up on eBay from time to time in different various conditions. So, you know, somebody can do this. It's fun. I mean, you know, it's not terribly expensive. Sure, yeah, it costs money, but what doesn't? Well, from what I've seen, you can have a nice fishing boat with a 300 horse outboard engine on it, and you'll be quickly into about 50,000 bucks before you blink your eye much. I mean, it's not hard to do, I understand, but you know, life's short, so enjoy a little bit, make sure your bills are paid, and then kids got shoes, and then maybe buy yourself a little retirement project to work on. From Indianapolis, Indiana, appreciate your viewership. Thanks for watching.